Oh, hey, friend. Hey, come here. All right, stand right here and have a look at the place. What do you think? Notice anything different? Oh, come on. Seriously? Look at the door. That's a brand new doorknob. Well, a brand new secondhand doorknob anyway. Well, thank you, Chester. I thought it looked pretty sharp too. Oh yeah, hey, Chester's here, friend. So you guys happy? Well, let's head in then. I know, buddy, but after story time, I'll fill the bathtub for you. Oh, shit! Oh, I know I put that screwdriver away, you ghostly prick! Yeah, turns out the place is kind of a timeshare arrangement, boy. Only the other guy never leaves, and he's a bit of a pain in the ass. Ooh, it's the Crimson Hour here at my new weekend abode, so we better get started, 'cause when that last lick of light fades away, it's gonna be you, me, Chester, and whatever's waiting in these walls for the lights to go out. All right, our tale tonight is a tribute to Edgar Allan Poe, based on The Mask of the Red Death. This one's kind of a modern-day gothic horror story, and it comes courtesy of our friends at Velox Books. So without further delay, from author Marcus Damanda, I give you Die Smilin'. The music stops. The flashes of intermittent prismatic light blink out in favor of bright continuous white. The glitter ball that hangs from the ceiling goes still. And on the dance floor, everyone freezes in place. All eyes turn to the intercom above the stage. At the tone, the time will be 11 p.m. The tone sounds. A single electronic chime that is a better than average representation of a clearly rung bell. One that would be small in size. Its sound quite beautiful and inviting, unthreatening in any way. And yet the people do not move. The smiles beneath their masks, betrayed by the delighted little crinkles about the eyes, disappear. They wait. Their faces are anxious. Anticipation hovers about them and over them and among them like an invisible poisonous cloud. Or perhaps an airborne virus. Gates 1 through 7 remain secure. No breaches have been detected. Fortifications remain strong. Air quality remains pure. The glittering city remains uncontaminated. Population, 0 infiltrators. They wait. One host. Richie Englander checks his Panerai Luminar watch as though it would show some other time than the one the voice of his own security system declares. And 1,000 guests. It is 11 p.m., and all is well. For a moment, the room darkens, but then brightly colored flashes of light flicker back to life. The band resumes playing, and the glitter ball recommences its rotation. Under the blinking, shuddering shot party lights, the revelry kicks right back in as though there has been no pause in the first place. No trepidation, no fear that anything would be any different now than it had been for the past 6 months. I do not know what everyone's so worried about, why they always stop at the sound of that voice. It's only me, the same voice they've always heard, anonymously telling them the truth of their situation every hour on the hour. You would think they'd be used to me by now. They've lived with me for a long, long time. Anyway, they get over themselves soon enough. Tonight's a night for celebration. Soon there will be champagne and cocktails. Later there will be games and conversation. Agreements will be struck, arrangements made. There'll be sex until the morning light, though none of them will see that light. No one in the glittering city has seen the sun in 6 months, and they don't miss it. Not down here, where heaven has been buried underground. No one throws a party like Richie Englander, and nowhere did he ever throw it better than in the glittering city he spent 20 years preparing in secret. He finished seemingly just in escaping all responsibility to his fellow man and cheating death in its moment of triumph. Here he now lives, making the most out of every meaningless day, drinking in the excesses of every debauchery known to the human experience, all while, on the outside, above ground, the world hastens swiftly to its end. There's your typical alphanumeric designation for this one, which is but the latest plague to have ravaged the world in this final age of the so-called dominion of man. But if there are any left to speak of it after it has run its course, they will remember it only as the grinning death. A cold irony, this symptom which is also the namesake of the virus. So many have taken to wearing masks these days, hiding their smile. It begins with the bleeding of the gums, then the separation of the teeth as the gum line expands and eventually cracks between the fissures where the roots of the teeth are anchored. This early stage, playfully referred to as the joke among the uninfected, is not fatal, but it does result in the contraction of the facial muscles. This in turn produces that final mask of hilarity, risus sardonicus, as it is called in the scientific community, or just the rictus grin to a layperson. From there, the deterioration and the rot expand. The typical subject will spit out their own tongue before the roof of the mouth and the lower jaw succumb to an increasingly rapid disintegration. The subject, if not killed, will generally still be alive at this point, provided they haven't choked to death on their own dislodged teeth. Typically, death comes with the eventual collapse of the skull, the interior collision of the brain matter with what shards of bone and cartilage yet remain. All of this, from the first dribble of gum blood to the end of a person's life, takes roughly half an hour. A bit less with the elderly, the infirm, or the very young. Perhaps as long as 40 minutes if the subject is hale and healthy and in the prime of life. None of this troubled Richie Englander, as he had never witnessed this phenomenon of grotesquerie in person. He knew of it from the first, naturally, as he was a well-connected man, and had in fact been preparing for an outbreak such as this for some time. It was in the first year of the coronavirus, 20 years prior, that he had the foresight to begin battening down his proverbial hatches. He had only begun growing his wealth at the time, associating himself with and investing himself in businesses that thrived under quarantine, buying out the local stores of their toilet paper before it occurred to anyone else that there might be a shortage, all while enjoying the luxury of a bidet in his private apartment. He thought a good joke at the time, but it also became an inspiration. Makers of N95 masks, protective gloves, and respirators, not to mention food delivery services and cable television networks, found themselves well financed by Richie Englander for 18 months or so. Technology that had to be both developed and deployed on the fly in order to conduct business and education from home flourished under his watch and filled his already considerable coffers. As the money came in, our boy Richie found that purchasing land once leased to brick-and-mortar retail outlets could be accomplished at a fraction of the cost it would have once demanded. His ever-roving eye found itself fixated on an underground shopping mall in Northern Virginia. Richie Englander, from the beginning, seemed to have an uncanny ability to see things before they happened. He got out of the quarantine business just before it ceased being so profitable. He redirected his financing to the reopening of America at just the right moment in time. He was a billionaire at 25 years old, and his keen eye for future developments was never wrong. Not then. He saw the coming waves of pestilence in his mind before they turned into reality, well ahead of the final disaster. By slow degrees, he converted his underground city of commerce into an automated fortress. The whole world knew his name, but not his purpose. They praised his philanthropy and advanced his charities. Richie Englander knew all of the best and most important people, but few, if any, knew him. And then one day, when he was still in his early 40s, Richie Englander, along with 1,000 of his favorite people, disappeared. Strange, people thought, that he should become a recluse in the first days of the grinning death, but they didn't make much of it. Viruses and their effects had become a way of life. No one understood how quick and how completely this final plague would wreak its devastation upon the world. No one, that is, but Richie Englander, who locked the doors of his underground city and never emerged from them again. Let it not be said that he failed at any precaution, for his guests were selected far from the epicenter of the latest virus's origin, mostly from among the young, and all of them in perfect health. The first he brought in were, by prearrangement, doctors and scientists. Women and men who could confirm the later arrivals brought with them no threat of contagion. Those who followed were invited from the very highest echelons of society, many of them entrepreneurs like himself. But they were also movie stars, stage actors, musicians, comedians, magicians, pornographers. No form of entertainment was forgotten or neglected. In the glittering city, no pleasure of the senses was unavailable, no excess of hedonism out of reach. All of these, protected under an umbrella of the most technologically advanced security system on the planet, were within. And I would know. I have been here the whole time. Under such security, granted such freedoms as well as their salvation from the grinning death, none balked at the only two rules that were non-negotiable. First, there were to be no families, no children. The glittering city was sufficiently provisioned for the 1,000 guests to live quite comfortably for 10 years. Time enough for the virus to run its course, but any increase in population would naturally fuck that up. Second, once a person was granted admittance, they were here for the duration. For 6 months, Richie Englander and his guests have enjoyed every benefit of his foresight and preparation. Tonight, they celebrate the milestone at a masquerade ball well suited to the modern era. For the masks, every last one of them, are of the same essential make that most of the world wears in the hopes of survival. On the outside, people wear the masks and still they die. In the glittering city, under the glitter ball in a grand concert hall of particular magnificence, the masks are unnecessary. The revelers wear them rather as a joke, out of mockery for a world they left behind. I walk the halls of the glittering city unaccompanied. No one knows that I am here. I am counted neither among the guests nor as an infiltrator. Why should I be? I'm the one in charge of the counting in this place, and if I should choose not to count myself, who would be any the wiser? As for the host, I see him always, even when I am not near him, for I am every camera eye that never blinks in the underground. I see everything and everyone all the time. These halls, all but the one where the masquerade thunders innocently on as the clock shows 11:15, are empty. My passage goes unnoticed, the soft tread of my boots unheard in the dark. Those parts of the city that are at any time unoccupied go dark automatically, then light up again as people pass through them. The hall does not light up for me, though I am quite real whensoever I wish to be, both in body and spirit. My boots are real too, as well as the rest of my garments. The mask I draw forth from the inside of my jacket is real. Its design most carefully considered before I wove the thing into existence myself. The face that wears it, the mouth it covers, are as real as anyone's. I live and breathe. I am just not, strictly speaking, a person, so the halls do not light for me. This particular hall, when illuminated, sparkles like sapphires, and the stained glass upon either wall shows sunny days and bright blue skies, though behind them is only dead concrete and earth packed so tightly that not even a worm could live in it. For this is the hall nearest to what had been the entrance into the city 6 months ago, and also a place 9.5 years from now the people think to exit back into the world, with the grinning death not but a dim memory to shadow their dreams. They have it all planned out, and why not? There's no way for any of them to know that this place, their glittering city, should have drawn my attention long before Richie Englander had even finished it. Yet it did. Only now, as I pass from the first hall into the second, I find that I have become bored. I would join the masquerade, make my own small contribution to the entertainment. The host, I dare say, will not be appreciative, but that is no concern of mine. Richie Englander, as all secretly understand, though none will admit it, is an asshole. I can see him now as I pass from the blue hall to the one that, when occupied, radiates a softer and less stark shade of plum, a hall which Richie has inaccurately dubbed the Purple Hall. I am not with him, as by now you understand, but I am on my way, traversing the length of the 7 halls from east to west. Before I crash the party, as the saying goes, I shall pass from the so-called Purple Hall to the Green Hall, from the Green Hall to the Orange Hall, from the Orange Hall to the White Hall, from the White Hall to the Golden Hall, and from there at last to Richie and his precious friends. But I never take my eyes from him, not all of them anyway. I have plenty of eyes to spare. I watch him as he approaches the stage, for at 11:20 the band steps down so that he might occupy the whole of the stage himself. 2 of my eyes track his progress while 2 more track my own, making sure I don't make any missteps or trip over my own feet. I have my eyes on the world above as well. In the back of my mind, I can still see the people camped outside of an electrified cocoon that forms a dome over what used to be paid parking for the underground shopping mall, but now serves as the first layer of protection for the glittering city. People do test that cocoon from time to time. They have little better to do. At 11:25, even as Richie Englander comes to the mic stand, they test it. It is a small boy who draws the short straw this time. He gathers his breath and rushes it, perhaps praying the charge has been burned out of it by now. He leaps, presumably hoping for a chance to climb the thing, and erupts in a flashing thundercloud of blue and white light, yellow flame, and gray smoke. He never even screams, but a woman who might be his mother does, her open mouth a cavern of horror and grief. She doesn't know yet that her teeth already bleed from the first onset of the grinning death, but those nearest to her notice immediately. They scatter like an expanding ring of flame at the base of a nuclear explosion. Once they are far enough away from her, they turn back around to gun her down. She never sees it coming. She sees only what's left of her child sizzling like a bacon strip on the side of the still electrified cocoon, until seconds later, she joins him in death. All the while, 300 feet below them, Richie Englander taps the live microphone, a sound that echoes across the whole of the 7th hall, which is lit with every color on the spectrum, yet only one color is suited to the place. All else is garish, unnecessary, overdone, and neglectful besides. How is it, I wonder, that you forget to include a red hall, Richie? 11:30. He's wearing a shimmering black robe with gold trim tonight, complete with a golden sash, Not the sort of thing one wears for dancing maybe, but Richie doesn't dance. He observes. He eats and drinks. He fornicates. And always he talks. "Good evening, my friends!" Cheers from all assembled. Tonight he leaves his mask on, not wanting to encourage any to remove theirs. Again, this is not for safety, but rather for vanity's sake, for the masks are all gifts that he has had delivered to each individual apartment only this morning, along with the invitations that were in fact a summons. Richie is nothing without his audience, and he's smart enough to know it. "Are you having a good time tonight? Has everyone found a fuck buddy?" Their eyes crinkle at the corners, betraying their smiles. Their masks flutter with laughter. Among them are animal masks, faces from the nose down representing foxes and cats, orangutans and eagles. There are spiderweb masks and masks of blue flame. There are flags and sports teams, woven patterns of color ranging from the beautiful to the bizarre. They are each one unique, and each seem to complement the wearer, whether by virtue of their features or their attire. Richie's own mask is of black silk with a golden sun at its center. Though he is clean-shaven, he's let his straight black hair grow down to the shoulders. There are no barbers or hairdressers in the glittering city, as I now recall sifting through my mental notes as I approach the green hall. Soon, if he can't already, he'll be able to tie it in a tale. How very rock star of you, Richie. He makes a short speech, then talking about the 6 months, how they had accomplished the impossible, created a true safe haven from the apocalypse raging on in the world above. He raises a fist, and the people do likewise with a shout. He points to first this woman, and then that one, then winks and beckons them both with the middle finger of either hand. They approach, one of them rather tentatively by the look of her. The crowd chuckles and hoots and whistles. But Richie isn't done addressing the crowd just yet. He speaks of them all collectively and of himself as the second chance. He promises them that once they return to a world where the grinning death is no longer any threat, mankind will once more be able to be fruitful and multiply, as the good book says. And the people laugh even harder. Then, to a final laugh, he abruptly ends with, "I need a drink," and hops back off the stage to much applause and adulation, and with a young woman hanging from either shoulder. The apartments where the residents of the glittering city go both to fuck and to sleep are farther underground than the 7 halls. Not counting Richie's own expansive quarters, there are 499 of these. No one lays claim to any of them. They are chosen quite randomly on any given night, and it's always a bit of a scramble finding one if you have not yourself chosen a partner to lie with that evening. Yet they are all well appointed and few complain. At least few do so very loudly, lest someone they do not trust might spread word of their discontent. But there are none occupying any of these as the time approaches 11:45. The guests are rather right where they should be, just as Richie has placed them, partying in the 7th hall like there is no tomorrow. As I pass from the green hall to the orange one, I adjust my mask, make sure the fit is good and snug, the better to showcase its design. I take off my gloves and pocket them. For what I have in mind, I will not need my gloves, but I will need my hands.
Any news from the outside?
The question on this occasion comes from a woman whose name used to be Evelyn Grassley. Few enough choose to remember that now. For 6 months, she has only been Eva. It needn't be said that she is quite pretty, for all who were invited into this gilded prison are beautiful. It is, however, noteworthy that her mask matches her hair of electric blue, and its design is a Cheshire cat grin that stretches from ear to ear, or in this case, strap to strap, and it is certainly not the mask that has been left outside of her door this morning. And that, I think, is the true reason Richie selected her, a woman he had already lain with before. The one at his other side, a fretful young woman named Rachel, will be new to him. She, at least, had worn her given mask, a full moon seeming to set over a lake of black water. Richie stops at the bar and taps it with an impatient finger. He does not pay for his drink. No one pays for anything in the glittering city. They simply ask for things, and most of the time they get them. Of course, Richie always gets whatever he wants. On this occasion, it is a Long Island iced tea, served to him by a man who on the outside had been a research chemist at work on vaccine adaptations to virus mutations. Only when Richie has his drink does he turn to his chosen partners for the evening. Uncharacteristically, rather than voicing his disapproval of Eva's mask, he chooses to answer her question. His answer is, of course, a lie. "The outside doesn't concern me, Eva. It doesn't concern any of us." She's either unaware of his disapproval or chooses to ignore it.
There's no way you're not at least watching. You're the man who knows everything, right?
And there it is, the tell of her smile, the crinkling at the corners of her eyes. But Richie's displeasure is most clearly writ upon his face now. "And how would I do that? There are no televisions down here, Eva. No radios, no cell phones. Every camera in our city, minus the perimeter, is turned inward. You know this. The more important question is, why are you such a nosy bitch?" The tail of her smile melts away. Eva says nothing at first. "Are you growing bored, Eva? Got a minor case of the cabin fever, do you? Just 6 months in?" She shakes her head no. Those smiling eyes now betray a hint of hurt. The tail is the hint of bloodshot that creeps into them. As for Rachel, she looks more uncomfortable than ever. She looks left and right as though seeking some escape. Yet she stays put. She has not been dismissed. Richie's voice, if anything, grows quieter the nastier he becomes. "Do you miss someone, Eva? Your brother, maybe? Someone else? You wonder, perhaps, how the people on the outside are doing? You think maybe that the spread of the grinning death has somehow magically slowed, or even stopped altogether, while we've been down here?" She shakes her head again. No, such a thought would be ridiculous. "Do not ask if I am watching, Eva, for I do not give a fuck what is happening up there anymore, and neither should you. The death belongs only to them. Down here we are safe. Is that not enough for you? You have your fucking life. Be happy with that." It isn't out of weakness that Eva remains silent, nor that she sheds an actual tear. It is instead a credit to her intelligence and to her considerable fortitude that she comports herself thus, for it is a critical moment. She had wanted information, not ire. If she should rise up against Richie Englander, if she should be so foolish as to challenge this monster of a man, he would simply summon the others, and they would come. At a word, though they might secretly share Eva's misgivings, they would rip her apart with their bare hands. And so she holds her tongue and allows the tears to fall, for the time is not yet right. Perhaps it will be eventually. 10 years, as she must know in her heart, are simply not doable under the megalomaniac that is Richie Englander. Or maybe it is simply that I understand these things, and most superimpose what I know upon her. It's not as though I can read her mind. Yet I think with some surety that I am right. No one, except perhaps Richie himself, believes Eva a fool. "I gave you a mask, Eva, and you wear this." He plucks a strap from her ear, making it drop from her mouth, which affects a tremble that confirms my suspicions. Oh yes, Eva is definitely playing right now. Eva Grassley was always an excellent actress.
Fucking ruined my symmetry,
Richie finishes, lowering his own mask to take a sip of his tea, then brings it up again.
No consideration at all.
Then his gaze falls upon Rachel. He studies her up and down. She stands there and waits, perhaps wondering if she too has pissed him off in some way. Instead, his mood instantly brightens. His voice again becomes winsome, almost happy.
You, on the other hand, look lovely tonight.
At 11:55, at the end of the night that marks Richie's 6-month reprieve from a fate predestined, I find that I have had quite enough, just as I knew I would. From the start, I'd known the hour when my patience with this experiment would come to an end, and so it has. It is not, I reflect, something I completely understand, but as I reach the end of the glittering city's golden hall, that of the currently dimmed lamplights and the admittedly impressive fountain of wishes, it is not for me to know everything. My decisions and my whims alike are part of a greater plan, I think, but I also believe with confidence that the means and the inspiration by which I carry out that plan are mine alone. And if I'm wrong about that, well, so what? I like my job. There aren't many who can say that. In my mind, I travel back through the circuitry of the security system. I find the control board and keypad to the electrified dome that protects the glittering city from the rest of the world. My fingers tap the air right in front of me, and far away I can see the required numerical combination appear on the screen. Beyond the double doors in front of me, the band plays on. From that perimeter control board, I proceed thence to the lights, illuminating first the Hall of Sapphires, then the Hall of Plum. The glittering city can accommodate much more than merely 1,000 guests, and it wouldn't do to have the latecomers fumble around in the dark. I light the Hall of Emeralds with its greenhouses and its gardens, proceeding thence to the fireplace hall of ruddy orange. I flip the switches that ignite the ensconced flames, a warmth that will spread throughout the city in less than 10 minutes without setting any fires that would be dangerous. The Hall of White Light and Ivory is next, and perhaps the least interesting unto itself, as it serves mainly as a grand mess hall where all gather to eat at the appointed times. But when my focus returns to the hall in which I currently stand, coming back to myself as it were, the fountain erupts to life under the hanging lamps, casting a golden light that is simultaneously beautiful and ludicrous. The fountain is, one might suggest, a monument to human vanity and excess, and the perfect expression of Richie Englander's innermost soul, gargantuan and pretty and utterly devoid of any practical purpose, a fountain of wishes doomed to die in its own waters. And, oh my, the time! It's 11:59. I wait out the final minute, then speak through the hourly security intercom before making my grand entrance. Did I mention? I've made some adjustments to the lighting of the 7th hall. One does what one can. At the tone, the time will be 12 a.m. Again, the revelers stop in place. The dancing stops, the music dies, and again Richie Englander approaches the stage. One last hurrah before taking his 2 fuck buddies back to his personal quarters. The electronic chime sounds. The people wait. Their uneasiness is not new, but this morning, though they do not yet know it, is entirely justified. Neither Rachel nor Eva will be getting fucked by Richie Englander tonight. Gates 1 through 7 are open. Muttering from the gathered 1,000, Richie mutters, "What the hell?" No breaches have been detected. but fortifications are down.
They turn to one another, worried, questioning. Eva turns to her host.
Richie?
Be quiet, he seethes at her. Smile and look pretty. She withdraws from him. He makes no note of her as she backs away, then turns, then disappears into the crowd. Richie has neither eyes for her nor Rachel, who yet remains by his other side. He sees only the intercom, hears only the intercom, speaking impossibilities. The next message is, however, more hopeful.
Air quality remains pure. The glittering city remains uncontaminated. Population, 0 infiltrators.
A collective sigh of relief from the crowd.
1 host.
I'll take care of it, Richie calls out, waving a hand as though he could dispel the collective disquietude by magic. Just a glitch. Roman, get me a team back at Gate 1, stat.
And 1,001 guests. It's midnight in the glittering city, and the party's just getting started.
With that, I fling open the double doors and step inside. I do not speak as I stride into the 7th hall. It is enough for them to hear my voice when I speak through the intercom, though they shall never know that voice belongs to me. Richie shall not know. For what I must now do in person, words are unnecessary. For some of them I deem my very presence, the manner in which I have chosen to present myself, will be sufficient in terms of communication. They will know what I am and why I am here. They need understand no more than that. As I join their company, it is clear they perceive I am the one of the 1,001 guests. I find that my welcome is no worse than I could have reasonably expected, for my mask is that of the grinning death. It is important that the revelers understand that it is a mask. Had they thought my visage genuine, they'd have scattered at once. And so I have made sure that the straps at either side are plainly visible, but it is otherwise most convincing. The rictus grin stretched wide to either side, the fissures in the gums scarlet with fresh blood, the pink teeth, the lips scabbed over and dripping. I do not draw all attention to myself in only an instant, but the rumor of my presence spreads quickly enough throughout the 7th hall, until at length there seems to have arisen from within the gathered throng a continuing buzz of disapprobation and shock, and eventually of horror and disgust. But Richie's voice, amplified not only by virtue of the stage mic, but also with a gathering rage, conquers all. Who the fuck are you? And how the fuck did you get in here? I turn to him. The people part on either side between us, allowing me a clear path to him. I stride towards him, undeterred and without hurrying. Time is no longer a factor, and although I remain silent as far as my mouth of flesh and blood is concerned, the intercom updates the current situation.
Gate 1 has been breached. Air quality has been compromised. The glittering city is contaminated. Population 25 infiltrators, 1 host, 1,001 guests.
They are too far away to be heard, but the pronouncement of their very existence sends a collective shudder of growing terror among the guests that is mostly expressed by turning heads, their continued murmuring, and the decision by a small pack of them to at once slam shut and then barricade the double doors. Others swiftly join in the effort, and very soon they are upending tables to fortify their barrier, then piling chairs on it. Richie hardly notices. From within his robe, he draws forth a pistol and levels it straight at me as I close the distance between us. 50 feet away, then 45, then 40. Somebody grab this freak show and get his fucking mask off! It's almost a scream, equal parts terror and outrage.
I want to know who this son of a bitch is before we hang his fucking corpse from the perimeter dome.
Now Rachel, as though having taken her cue from Eva, abandons him as well, though she has in truth nowhere to go, and again Richie hardly even notices. But a few of them, not many, make a move to converge on me from either side, and as they draw close, I simply reach out with either hand and tender a gentle caress across the cheek of the first two, one to my right, the other to my left. Their masks fall away, though my touch was soft and without so much as the hint of violence. They freeze in place and draw in breath as one, then the other drops to their knees, hands over their mouths. Richie fires his gun. The bullet passes through me. It makes a hole in my shirt, not only up front, but through the back, then lodges itself squarely in the stomach of one who then drops to his knees, wailing, the fingers over his stomach dripping fresh blood. I continue on towards Richie. 25 feet away. 20. The intercom again comes to life with a fresh update.
Gates 1 and 2 have been breached. Air quality has been compromised. The glittering city is contaminated. Population, 129 infiltrators. 1 host. 1,001 guests.
Ah, they've made it from the blue hall to the green one. I can see them in my mind. Many of them charging at a run. Many more slowing to take in every wonder of the glittering city as they pass through it. But my eyes remained focused on Richie. To his credit, he discards his useless firearm and walks straight up to me. Let it not be said that Richie Englander, whatever his other faults may be, is a coward. He reaches out to my face, to my mask, and yanks it down. The first mask, fluttering to my feet before it dissolves in mid-descent and dissipates to nothing, is replaced by a second. In this one, the lips have begun to go purple. A few of the teeth have dropped out. The fissures in its gums have gone black with infection and rot. Richie, with a wail, tears that mask from me as well. I do nothing to stop him. I thought this might happen. The third mask naturally shows stage 3 of the grinning death. The teeth are all gone now. The gums are broken in pieces. The jawline looks fit to break away at any second, leaving me with half a face. But before that happens, I lean in as though for a kiss, holding Richie Englander at either side of his head. But first, I draw in a deep breath and suck the mask off his lips and swallow it, straps and all. Then I kiss him, and my mask, which I spent many hours preparing for this moment, does not in any way impede the kiss I place upon him, nor does it prevent or filter in any way the blood I drool into his mouth, my half-dislodged tongue spreading infection under his, and across the insides of his cheeks, the front of his teeth. It dances in Richie's mouth like a convulsing snake, making sure that he is aware of exactly what I am doing to him, of my intent, of what is happening to him at a cellular level even now, for it takes very little time for the grinning death to begin its work. Then pushing him back from me in a grand gesture of dismissal, my arms thrown wide, I watch him drop to the floor as though already dead. But he is not dead, for he soon rolls over to his side, retching and gasping and howling in abhorrence. Those who I had earlier caressed remained on their knees, hands over their mouths, the first evidence, the blood, pooling up between their fingers, almost like the man Richie had just shot.
Gates 1 through 4 have been breached. Air quality has been compromised. The glittering city is contaminated. Population, 1,241 infiltrators. 1 host. 1,001 guests.
But the intercom is scarcely to be heard at this point. The 7th hall fills with screams of lamentation and hysteria as the lights go out. then come back on fully and completely red. A deep crimson, rich with the shadows of scurrying people. They have nowhere to go, nowhere to escape to. The only disruption to the blanket of crimson and shadow is the glitter ball, which yet flashes a variety of refracted colors, creating an effect that is decidedly displeasing to the eye. So I will the massive sphere to drop. It explodes upon the floor like a glass grenade, scattering shards of crystal everywhere. The middle of the floor empties, the 1,000 guests fanning out to the walls and corners, and to the barrier they had flung up so hurriedly but moments ago. It is all for nothing. I will not allow those doors to open again until I am done. I visit the guests one at a time, whether stepping up to this one or dancing over to that one, whether running to take one by surprise or flying over the heads of several to descend on one from above. All I wish is to touch every cheek, to pass my fingers gently over each pair of lips. It is a tragedy and a shame that I must include both Eva and Rachel in this. None are to be excused. Already I can see Richie regaining his feet, though he bleeds freely from the mouth. He spits teeth onto the floor. The symptoms come quickly with the grinning death, though it will take half an hour or a bit more to fully claim the lot of them. And it is no mercy, I suppose, that I have led the gathered campers outside of the perimeter dome to this place in the moment of its destruction. But then many of them had already been in close contact with the infected woman whom they had gunned down earlier. It's not as though any of them are going to survive this, no matter what. There is only one thing in life that is inescapable, one thing that is truly predestined. And that thing, though it often wanders among you most cleverly disguised, is me. I can be anywhere, even in the circuitry of a subterranean security system that is supposed to be impenetrable. There is nothing to be afraid of, for there is nothing you can do. Fate, in the end, will have its way. And here is the proof. As the 1,000 guests of Richie Englander drop one at a time but in quick succession, each rigid with the despairing posture of their fall, faces contorted in smiles they will wear until the very flesh rots from their skulls. And as the infiltrators rush headlong to an acceleration of their own demise they do not anticipate, for here they had always hoped to find salvation. There are more than 3,000 of these now. I can hear them through the walls. I do not reopen the double doors to the 7th hall. With the snap of a finger, I merely unlock them and disappear, leaving Richie's beloved underground city to glitter in the dark until the lights burn themselves out with the passage of time. And that was Die Smiling by Marcus Damanda. A good reminder that death doesn't care about your fancy Panerai Luminar watch. Or your Craftsman toolbox. Ethereal prick! Stay out of my shit! A little about the author. Marcus Damanda lives in Woodbridge, Virginia, where he's been writing stories since the age of 9. At various times throughout his life, he played bass guitar for the garage heavy metal band Mother's Day, wrote for the Dale City Messenger, and published editorials in the Potomac News and the Freelance Star. When he's not writing for the No Sleep podcast, he teaches middle school English. To find Marcus Damanda's works, visit veloxbooks.com. And a very special thanks to Velox Books, publisher of the No Sleep Stars. The Crimson Hour is a production of the Sinister Somnolence Network. All narration and audio production by yours truly. Co-produced by my good buddy, that bald-headed wild man, Geoff Sturtevant.
You can follow me on Facebook for news and upcoming releases on both this show and Drew Blood's Dark Tales, my Friday night show on Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights. I hope to see you there too. But while we're here, please hit all those obligatory buttons and share if you don't mind. I'd sure appreciate it. The Crimson Hour is accepting submissions, friend. If you've got a story or two you'd like to be featured on this show, send it to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com. If selected, you'll get the full treatment. And please be sure to check out the other podcast featured on this network, Spectral Margins, which airs on Tuesdays featuring stories from the other side of the proverbial veil. And join our ladies on Wednesday night's Winterific podcast, where it's Women in Horror Month year-round. Well, the Crimson Hour's over, and you know what that means. Things are about to get darker around here. Darker than usual, I mean. So thanks for joining me tonight, friend. Our network matron, Natalie Brown, would like you to know she's thankful to each and every one of you for being here. Well, I am too, of course, so don't let that shiny new doorknob hit you where the good Lord split you on your way out. Oh, and please hit the like button before you go pound sand. I'll see you all next week at the same time. The Crimson Hour. Good night, y'all. Say good night, Chester. Attaboy. Come on, bud. Let's go fill up that tub for you. Man, I tell you, little buddy, it sure is good having you here. I get to missing you sometimes, you little shit. Well, don't you ever miss me? Ah, well, there's no reason to be like that. Scaly prick.